Good morning to those of you joining from Australia, and kia ora to those of you joining us from New Zealand. On behalf of PBC and Hogan, welcome to our 2026 Virtual Thought Leadership Forum. My name's Emma Berry, and I'm delighted to be your host today. The surname isn't a coincidence. I recently joined my parents' business after many years in human capital consulting, and it's a real pleasure to see so many of you online with us today. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet today. I'm joining from our offices on Camaragal land and pay my respect to elders past and present. Please feel free to share in the chat the lands from which you're joining on. Tomorrow, our Thought Leadership event in Sydney will be at the MCA, which has an impressive collection of Aboriginal art. And this image is of their current foyer artwork created by a Walmadri artist, John Princeton. And the biggest of his time, you'll see it beautifully combines First Nations worldview, pop culture. I'm sure some of you can spot some references in there, and local wildlife. The past year has been a really exciting one for PBC. I wanted to touch briefly on a few key milestones. Our Hogan certifications have reached 7,000 certified users across Australia and New Zealand. That's an amazing community of practitioners, and I know several of you are on the line today. We've also reached more than 69,000 360s globally and have over 30 benchmarks in 26 languages in place. Our research team has been very busy. They were at New Orleans at PSYOP earlier this year, and only in the last month have had an exceptional leadership publication released in the Journal of Research and Personality. And our consulting and coaching business continues to grow, as does our global presence with our team members across Australia, New Zealand, the US, and Ireland. In terms of the agenda for today, we're fortunate to be joined by two outstanding speakers. The first will be Peter Berry, who is going to share with us the latest research behind the Core 5 leadership model and discuss what the research is telling us about high-performing teams. Following Peter, we'll hear from Dr. Ryne Sherman, Hogan's Chief Science Officer, who's here with us in Australia and New Zealand this week. And he's going to explore the skills and capabilities that will become increasingly important in an AI-enabled world. After we hear those presentations, there'll be an opportunity to get some questions from the audience as well. A few quick words of housekeeping, although I know we're all old hands at Zoom by now. Please use the Q&A function to submit your questions throughout the presentations. I'll keep an eye on those, and feel free to upvote those that you'd like us to get to in the Q&A. Please use the chat to share any highlights or reflections that you have as you hear from the presenters. And just so that you know, we will be recording today's session and sending both the slides and recording out afterwards for your reference. So let's do a quick test of those reaction buttons. If everyone can give me a thumbs up if you're ready to get into the presentations, it'd be great to see you all on the line. Awesome, I can see those thumbs up flowing through. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Peter Berry. Peter is the founder and managing director of PBC and the creator of the Hogan 360. For more than 35 years, he has been at the forefront of leadership assessment and development, helping organisations identify, develop and support leaders. Today, he's going to be sharing with us his latest research into research effectiveness and the Core 5 model. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much, Emma. And I just want to congratulate Emma on taking a very brave decision to come and join her parents' business. We think she's going to do a better job of leading the business than myself and my beautiful wife and business partner, Shane Nealon. She's joined as a director, but the succession planning means in Q4 of this year, probably October 1, she will become the new CEO of PBC and take us on from bigger and better. So put your hands together, send her a nice little message. We're super happy for her. And Ryne Sherman, thanks for the huge trip. Ryne was in Edinburgh, had to come back to America, flew to Australia. It took 35 hours from doorstop to doorstop. So if you see him falling asleep today, send a little message because we're going to keep him alive and active for the next hour. Can I thank all of you people who have registered for today? It's a record number for us, 550. That shows an enormous interest in the topic of leadership, people, culture, teams, plus artificial intelligence, which Ryne is going to cover. And we're always very generous with white papers and thought leadership papers and research and everything. So if anyone needs anything, just don't be a stranger, yell out. So what I'm going to talk about, what's the crisis today with leadership teams and employee engagement? I'm going to be a little bit serious and disciplined. Sometimes I try to be humorous. My wife says the jokes don't work, but we are faced with a leadership crisis. It's never been worse, and I'm going to rely on Gallup data. The second point, we've had our research team, and I think our research team is the best in Australia in terms of organisational psychology. And we've uncovered what is the core of great leadership. And we're going to share that with you and tell you how we can work with you to use it. And then what's best practice with leadership development and teams. Okay, I want to start, by shocking you a little bit. There's a global business crisis in leadership teams and engagement. The Gallup data is really, disturbing, horrible. We're not getting any better. And I just want to postulate the following to you. The global business ecosystem's never been harder. Profitability, margins, technology, wars, pandemics, AI. So the external business environment has never been tougher, but we're not getting better with the internal business environment when it comes to leadership, teams, and engagement. In fact, engagement's going down. So never before have we faced such a tough trading business environment, but we don't have the resources internally in terms of human capital to manage that effectively. So let me quickly walk you through some statistics. Look, we're big fans of Gallup. We like Culture Amp. There's a lot of good providers out there, but Gallup's research is very sophisticated, very global. And the headline act here is employee engagement continues to decline. It's gone from 23 down to 21, and the latest data is 20. So only 1 in 5 people are truly engaged. The rest are somewhat engaged or negative. And Dr. Ryne Sherman will tell you 6% of people can be toxic and 3% can be incompetent. And I think there's a significant number of people that just cruise. So if we're really going to have a great business, you've got to get that employee engagement up to 30, 40, 50%. Managers. Now, this is the scary thing. I'd never seen this until a year ago from Gallup, that they also measure not only employee engagement, but management engagement. So we're now getting crucial insights into leaders and how are leaders feeling, emotionally and psychologically in terms of their attachment to the business. So management engagement has dropped from 27% to 22% just in the last year. That's really upsetting. I'm concerned about that. It's a disaster. It's a catastrophe. And imagine the impact on a disengaged manager with their team. You're going to disengage the team. You might be looking for a new job, spreading your misery, drinking vinegar for breakfast, whatever. Then why does this matter? Because the research shows that the manager of a team has 70% of the variance in the team engagement, performance, decision-making, culture. So the manager is the single most important resource in any team. And it should be a role model manager. It should be driving the strategy, the purpose, the goals. It should be making people feel motivated about the importance of their work. And then that manager can then have 50% of the impact on the next level down, the second level of people who report to their direct reports. So it should be the biggest challenge internally, building leadership and making sure we've got the right ones. 44% of managers say they've never had manager training. So think about this. You take your best project engineer working on a construction engineering site, and you say, you're a damn good engineer. We're going to make you the project manager. We're going to make you the construction manager. We're going to bring you into head office and you can do tenders and quotes and business development. And those people are saying, hold on, I don't know whether I've got the leadership skills. So I will talk to you today. Some people want to stop at the manager level. They don't want to go on to be a leader. John Cotter from Harvard Business School said, the manager is running the trains on time, the leader is creating the future of transport. And we've got a lot of managers that say, I don't even want to be a manager. I haven't had that training. So we're letting them down. Then another important statistic, and I'm trying to shock you here so we can then move on to solutions and what would fix all of this. 1 in 4 managers would prefer not to be a people leader. Now, that's really scary. Again, you're appointing a highly technical, maybe cognitively smart manager, brilliant on the tools, brilliant at projects, narrow special technical expertise. They don't want to lead people. And what are we doing? We're putting them in charge of people, and they're running teams and they don't want to be there. So that's a huge challenge too, the selection, identification, succession planning, getting that right. Then, this is the disturbing bit. We asked, in the next 2 years, if you got a decent job offer, would you stay or leave? 49% of people said they'd leave. Remember, this is global data. I'm not breaking it down by Australia or Japan or America, global data. So it's a global pandemic, if you like. And look at the managers. 51% of managers are thinking of leaving, quitting, getting out. They're dusting off their resumes. They're open to executive recruitment, knocking on the door. So we have a huge issue in employee retention. And I always put employee retention under the umbrella of we want employee engagement, employee retention, and employee performance. That's the key to building a high caliber, purpose-led workforce. So these stats are very scary. Okay, teams. Let's talk about teams. Now, remember Lencioni wrote the famous book, Five Dysfunctions of Teams, many years ago. The research coming out of Harvard Business School and the Center for Creative Leadership, they show that only 1 in 5 teams are high performing, 80% are mediocre or still dysfunctional. Now, can you give me some feedback here? Who's ever seen a dysfunctional team? Send me a message. Thumbs up. Yes, I've seen a dysfunctional team. I've worked in a dysfunctional team. Well, here they come, coming out, and it's absolute proof that teams can easily be dysfunctional. I've worked in one. And what was your experience? Was it really negative? Did you hate it? Did you not like it? Did it leave you feeling disengaged? So I think teams has been the unsung hero in leadership programs. We just don't do enough on teams. And I'll give you one of the famous Peter Berry quotes. I've only got about 2 or 3. Leadership is about results. Teams deliver results. Judge the leader by the team. So we ought to really put the pressure on the leader of the team to do something about getting team one right. Okay, engagement is more than just a people issue. It's killing the economy. These are global figures, US dollars, 10 trillion. I can't even get my head around that. But just a question for the audience. Do you know that if there's one person quitting the organization because they're quitting the boss or the toxic culture or so on, the cost is 50, 60,000 Australian. One person. So you work out the cost of your turnover and that will give you a number that would shock the CFO. Now, we've really got to put a cost on this. So I'm saying this is a business issue, not a HR issue. Please don't think that people and culture are going to fix this or the chief people officer. It's a business issue because it goes straight to the bottom line. Okay, this is a new slide of mine. I don't know whether it's going to work or not. We've all heard of the boiling frog syndrome. If the water's cold and you turn the temperature up a little bit, the frogs don't notice it. They're happy. They're basking in the warmth. But if you turn it up real quick, these frogs will jump. They don't want to be part of it. And I think that's what's happened with leadership. We've got a lot of leaders who I would call frogs swimming in the pool, and the temperature's medium, and they're sitting around saying we need to run a leadership program. And the other one says, oh, we've done that before. And the third one says, oh, we've got other priorities, operational issues, fixing our margin. So we say that leadership drives engagency. And what I'm seeing in the broader leadership community is there's not enough urgency. We're not boiling the frogs. We're telling them that complacency and mediocrity is good enough. So if you can do something to influence your CEO or the CPO, get out there and say this matter is urgent. It deserves attention. It pays. So who agrees here that sometimes leadership are a little bit complacent and mediocre with what their efforts are to drive better leadership and teams? And here go the notes coming in. Yes. Look, I get feedback all the time from CEOs. We can't do 360s this year. We're too busy. We can't worry about a middle management program. Our margins are a bit tight. So it's the first thing to suffer is investment in leadership and culture. Okay, introducing the Core 5 model. I'm going to get a bit excited now, maybe show a little bit of passion. We've got a great research team. We've got a fantastic relationship with Ryne Sherman, the Chief Science Officer from Hogan. And what we did, we looked at the very best 360s. We've got about 60,000 360s in our database. We did correlations with the Hogan assessments, the HPI and the HDS, mainly to look at the bright side and dark side. Then we went into the beautiful Hogan competency model. And if any of you have not seen the Hogan competency model, reach out. We'll send you a summary. It's just the world's best taxonomy of beautiful leadership competencies. So we triangulated the research, and guess what we found? We found there are 5 absolutely core competencies that all organizations should be taking seriously. So let's have a look at them. Like I said, where did it come from? Research of 2,000 of the best leaders in our 360 database, correlations with Hogan and HCM, and away we go. So here's the model. It's at the moment we're calling it 5 meta competencies, and there are 5 elements to it. There's credibility. Am I capable of doing the job? Do I have the qualifications, the skill, the work ethic, the expertise, and am I ethical? In other words, would you rehire me to do the job? So you've got to have credibility. Number 2 is emotional intelligence. You've got to be in control of your emotions. You've got to be socially skilled. You can do enduring relationships. 3, you've got to be achievement focused. You're on the payroll for a reason, achieving KPIs, achieving results, achieving milestones. Then we get into the big stuff, which is leadership. Are you strategic? Are you visionary, the 1-year plan, the 3-year plan? Are you innovative, improving processes and using automation and AI? Do you think big picture? Like you've always got that longer term lens. And the final one, are you an inspiring leader? And are you motivational to your team and people? Are you passionate? Are you engaging? And that's what drives really good engagement scores when you do Gallup or Culture Ramp or whatever. It's really those top 2. And can I just say to you, this fits beautifully with a lot of the thought leadership. Some of you would know Jim Collins. Tell me if you've read Good to Great or you know his work about level 5 leadership. Yes, I'm getting thumbs up. He'd probably be about my favorite author, my favorite business guru. So he says level 5 leadership, which is the best leaders, he said they drive the strategy, the purpose, the goals, the direction, the big picture initiatives, and they're inspiring because they're passionate about the importance of the work we do. Now, what you do in engagement surveys is you look, do people get the purpose and strategy of the organization? And are they empowered and inspired about the quality of the work they do? And that would give you that level 5 leadership. John Cotter from Harvard Business School talks about the transition from manager to leader. The manager is the first 3, and the leader is the next 3, with both of them having achievement focused in the middle. And Dr. Hogan, our beautiful friend, he's still alive and well in Florida, and we love him deeply. He talks about getting along, getting ahead, and finding meaning. The getting along is the first 2, the getting ahead is the next 3, and finding meaning is all 5. So Bob's got that beautiful theory on leadership. So they're the 5 super competencies. Let's have a quick look. Credibility. Would you get rehired? So do you deliver high quality, dependable work? Are you proficient, reliable? Do you show integrity? You're a role model, you live the values. So credibility is your foundation. Then we build the emotional intelligence. And can I tell you that emotional intelligence is not going away? And I'll share a secret with you. Hogan's invented emotional intelligence long before Daniel Goleman did in 1995. The Hogan Personality Inventory, which we call the bright side, had adjustment, emotional regulation, interpersonal sensitivity, social skill, and prudent self-control. So Hogan had in the HPI, way before Daniel Goleman, the scales that predicted a high level of EQ. So EQ is still important, not going anywhere. And then thirdly, it's achievement focused. Everyone's got to be passionate about goals, outcomes, results, milestones, achieving your KPIs. We're all here for a reason. So let's get in and enjoy the work and have a bit of fun and deliver those outcomes. Number 4, strategic. This is the hard one. Some managers don't want to make the transition to being strategic. Others can't wait to do it. So it's about vision, innovation, big picture thinking, having the 3-year lens, the 1-year lens. And I'm really getting excited about the concept of purpose, organizational purpose underpinning the strategy. What do I mean by purpose? Why do we exist beyond providing goods and services? Why do we exist beyond meeting budget or making a dollar? So when I worked with the Queensland Fire Brigade many years ago, we failed abysmally coming up with a long-winded, useless mission and vision statement. And then one bright spark said, what about we save lives? And it transformed the whole thinking of in Queensland to say that's our purpose, and we got everyone aligned around it. In PBC, we just had a team building event last week, and I said to my PBC team, what we're in the business of is hiring and developing the best people. if I had to come up with one sentence about PBC. And then I said, that means our work is super important. Doing personality assessments, doing 360s, doing coaching, building teams. Uh, so important for sure. Number 5, being inspiring. Do you motivate your teams, your people? Are we passionate, engaging? And do we combine EQ with the goal setting? And the inspiring leads to getting very good employee engagement data, whether it's Gallup or Culture Amp. So they're the 5 steps. What do you think of those 5 steps? Is it plain English? Is it business speak? Does it resonate with your own experiences, with what you've seen out there? Oh yeah, a few little hearts. That's good. Some so, despite my grey hair, I might bat on for another year or two, just acting as a mentor to Emma Berry to make sure she looks after the business and grows it. Yeah. So let me show you what we can do with that. We would love to work with you, and we'll give you white papers. This is our intellectual property. We'll share it. There's 4 things we can do. We can co-design a leadership development and coaching program using this model with you. At the moment, you can purchase Hogan Personality and 360 assessments, and those 5 competencies are measured inside those assessments. So it's immediately measurable using our products. 3, we can customize a 360 for your own organization. Some organizations have special capability and competency frameworks, and we'd like to think it could be science-based, drawing on the evidence and credibility and all the data that we've got. So very happy to customize a 360. And finally, you might want to say it's about time we dusted off the competency capability framework, bit of continuous improvement, bit of Kaizen. Would you want to collaborate with us? So please feel free to reach out if we could work with you. Okay, what's best practice these days? I've given you the scary numbers that we're not doing too well. I've shared our intellectual property with you. What's best practice? So simply, this is a little Peter Berry special. Leadership drives engagement, engagement drives performance. And for 8 years, we worked with Shell globally, providing their 360 to 5,000 people annually. And when we went to head office in London, this exact model was on their entrance in the foyer when you walked in. So it is a universal sort of business language and a simple model. Okay, so how does it work with what PBC does? Hogan Personality, you're all experts about the bright side, the dark side, the inside. That's all about creating self-awareness because it's a self-assessment. That's the red why. Who am I? Why do I behave? What are my values? Then you've got the Hogan 360, which is your love note from work. What do people say about you at work? Your boss, your peers, your direct reports. What's your public reputation? Is it a good one or a bad one? And finally, we look at the leader and their team, and we say, well, how is the leader and the team performing? And we like to use Personality 360 and our high performing team assessment. Now, some of you may not have heard of the high performing team assessment, HPTA. It is, believe me, a wonderful tool. Teams actually love it. And the way it works is teams go online, they answer all the questions about their team, and you get a score. You could have scored through the roof and be top 10 percentile. You might be right in the middle, 50th percentile. And just last week, I had to unfortunately present a team with a bottom 10 percentile score. And it was a shock even to the CEO. Didn't see it coming. So picture this. Teams get together every week. They have operational meetings. They might even monthly look at the strategy, and they're not looking at their culture. They're not having the difficult conversations. So we can help with all 3. And this is a unique little slide. I've got to give a bit of credit to Mark Efron, who's a very good author. He invented this originally, and I've just fine-tuned it. Core personality is hardwired. We say that Hogan has validity roughly for 5 years. After 5 years, I think it's worth repeating, just in case life and career has changed. But you've got your core personality reasonably hardwired. But then you've got behaviour choices in life. And the behaviour choices are, as you go up the ladder, can I do a strategic plan? Can I set KPIs? Can I have difficult conversations? Can I motivate people and work on morale? And those behaviour choices fit in with the concept of the best leaders are the best learners. So, we've got so many thousands of great leaders who built their behaviour and habits and competencies on top of the core personality. Those 2 together is how the 360 describes you. Now, one without the other doesn't give you full value. One without the other doesn't complete the jigsaw. If you've only got the personality, you're only guessing, a pretty good guess about the behavior. but you really do need that 360 to nail it. Okay, then I gave you my little secret quote before. What's the impact of leaders? Well, the leaders perform in teams. They're not individual contributors. So there's leadership is about results. Teams deliver results, and we judge the leader by the team. So let me just show you one more slide. This is introducing the high-performing team. We measure both the performance of the team, the culture of the team. Performance has 6 categories and culture has 6 categories. And it's a much more sophisticated, well-rounded model than what Patrick Lencioni really did years ago, where he said there's 5 competencies starting with trust. We think there's a bit more. And, you know, it's a very much value for dollar assessment. So you should be doing team 1, which is the CEO's team, and teams 2 to get maximum impact. Okay, high-performing teams. Again, this is research from America. High-performing teams deliver results that are 3 times the normal team results. In the private sector, it's revenue, profitability, shareholder return. So high-performing teams pay. So why wouldn't you, for God's sake, be invested in building good teams? Why do we put up with mediocre teams and dysfunctional teams? Because basically, you know, CEOs aren't born as CEOs. They might be an engineer or an accountant, and sometimes they don't get this people, culture, leadership stuff. Okay, 2 case studies. One is Novo Nordisk, a global pharmaceutical medical business. We're big partners with them in Australia and New Zealand, and we've been working with them for about 14 years now, and they use the whole suite. They use Personality 360, team assessment, coaching. We're currently putting, I think, something like 70 middle managers through a 360 and coaching program. So what we love is the consistency of the partnership. They don't go fad surfing. The CEO and the people and culture leader are totally committed to what we're doing. Just to show you a couple of outcomes, the high-performing team assessment score, the executives came in at 8.2 out of 10, which was top 10 percentile. So they have an awesome team. And the 360 data for the executives averaged 5.9 out of 7, which was above the 75th percentile. So all of this work over the last 15 years is really building sensational leadership capability. The team used all HPI, HDS, MVPI, and what I did, I pulled out from the MVPI data. Remember, this is the values, your hot buttons, idealized self, the meaning of life. Where were individual team members on the executive higher than 65%? So we'd say below 35 is low, 35 to 65 medium, above 65 is high. 72% on the executive are high on science. 72 high on altruistic, then you've got power and commerce. They're the 4 key drivers because the MVPI is the rudder for the ship, right? And so to fit in with the culture of the executives, really you could recruit using the MVPI to those 4. And I was thrilled to see that, you know, the science behind the medical, the altruistic, they believe their drugs have a positive impact. They're wanting to be high achievers and they want to make money as well. So you can use the MVPI on your executive team to find out where are the anchors and rudders for the ship. They went down to team 2 and we're about to do team 2 again. They used Hogan Personality, Hogan 360 coaching and tailored development plans. So there's a holistic one-stop shop. That's what I'm recommending when you partner with PBC and Hogan. And it was fascinating what we found with these middle managers. They're not comfortable and confident about leading growth and change. That could be a little bit of high cautious, a little bit of high security. So we had to teach them, you know, how do you drive change? How do you lead change? Building leadership confidence. Not everyone had self-confidence high in the subscales. Delegating effectively, they were tending to keep work to themselves. And we had to teach them that delegation is a positive thing to grow capability. Challenging poor performance, which is global. Everyone's got that on the agenda. Jim Collins, get the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and managing your workload more effectively. You're taking on too much, getting the balance right between in the business and on the business. That's Eleanor. She's an awesome head of people and organisation. And I'll pause for 2 seconds while you read her feedback. So we love you, Eleanor. Keep the good work going. And this is Knight Frank, a second case study. Knight Frank is a global property company. We work in the southern region of Australia, Perth, Adelaide, and Melbourne. We've been a partner for 15 years. They've been using Hogan for selection and development. Can I just indicate this to you? No one gets a job in Knight Frank without being put through the Hogans, even if you're a receptionist or an admin support person. So we have all of the data, and I'll show you that in a moment. 360 for managers, and we do the engagements. So what are their results? Top 10 percentile for employee engagement, top 10 percentile for customer engagement. Can I share one anecdote with you? The customer feedback raves about the caliber of staff. You've got the best staff compared to your competitors. We love working with Knight Frank. You guys are so much more professional and on the ball, and top 1 percentile for financial. And we recently did, I think in Adelaide, the South Australian team, believe it or not, that's 48 staff, all of the staff in Adelaide with the MVPI. Look at the commerce score. These people are valuers. They're valuing properties and businesses that are up for sale. So massively driven by commerce. Affiliation, they want a good culture. Power, they want to win. So great data coming out of the MVPI. And we broke the data down for some of you who are not familiar with the subscales. Very important to sort of look at occupational preferences on the back of the flash report. And of the 50 people, 29 got 4 out of 4 for affiliation. We want a good culture. 25 were driven by commerce. And there were 2 little poor souls here who want recognition, a thank you and a well done and a pat on the back, and they're probably not going to get it and be a bit frustrated. Okay, that's the managing partner of Knight Frank. Again, 30 seconds to read the quote. So all I'm doing is telling you that we've worked with a couple of clients for 15 years and we're getting fantastic results. Okay, a couple of concluding slides. I mentioned I'm very strong on purpose, giving people a reason beyond just a job and work. You know, do I work for a noble organization? Do I work for an organization that impacts human lives for the better? Do I then find meaning in my work, which makes me engaged? So the 3 challenges for business: get your strategic cadence right. Is there clarity on purpose, direction, and goals? And do you share it with the workforce? Are we building high-performing teams at team 1 and teams 2, the next level down? Because we want to take performance and collaboration to the next level. Just a quick word here. Collaboration is the one competency that comes top of the list for great teams and bottom of the list in bad teams. In other words, if you've got a toxic culture today, it's because there's no collaboration, which means silos, finger pointing, them and us. Then we want to tie it to the employee experience and improve the engagement, performance, and retention. If you get those 3 integrated in a holistic way, you're going to get business outcomes. Okay, key takeaways. I think this is my final slide. Keep using Hogan Personality, Hogan 360, and the high-performing team assessment. If you're not using all 3, think about using all 3. We offer you the one-stop shop, and we can come back and work with you quarterly and annually. It's all holistic, science-based. Urgently focus on leadership selection and development. That's a big issue. I showed you the data from Gallup. The goal is engagement, retention, and performance. And then we talk about leadership. The team is the brand of the leader, so make sure you're doing a lot around teams. And effective leadership is combining, all of the great leadership and the strategic clarity with the employee motivation. So we've got plenty to do, haven't we? There's a big crisis of leadership teams and culture out there, but we think we've got the answers. That's the positive message I want to leave you with. Looking at Novo Nordisk and Knight Frank, together we can make a huge difference. Thank you very much. Now, I've got a second speaking gig. Just when you thought you've had enough of Peter Berry, when can we get rid of him and let Emma Berry take over? It's my great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Ryne Sherman. Unlike me, Ryne is formally qualified. I went to Adelaide University and did a couple of degrees, but he did some serious degrees. He's the Chief Science Officer with Hogan in America. He's absolutely a world-class expert on psychology, analytics, evidence-based approaches. He's a very thoughtful, considered guy. He's written more than 50 peer-reviewed publications. He runs an amazing team. He collaborates with my research team. He's very passionate about his 2 kids. He's got a wonderful son and a wonderful daughter. And Ryne, great to have you in Australia this week. Thank you so much for coming here.
Well, thanks, Peter, for that wonderful introduction, and thanks for having me here in Australia. It's always awesome to be in Australia. One of my favorite places. I get to go to lots of places around the world. It's one of my favorite places to come to, even though it's a long ways away. Always enjoy coming down here and being with you all. And PBC has been an amazing partner for Hogan for many years and continues to be an incredible partner. So thank you to Peter and to Shane, and now also extending our thanks to Emma for the continued collaboration and ability to work together to deliver so many amazing results to so many of the clients that we get to work with to be able to help them identify those future leaders, to be able to help them develop those future leaders. So thanks for your collaboration on that as well. Um, thanks to those of you who are able to stick around and to hear a little bit. And I do apologize, of course, for my American accent, which may be difficult to follow, but I will I will try my best to speak as clearly as I can. Um, I'm going to talk a little bit today about the skills needed in an AI-driven world. Uh, some months ago, some of you may know because Australia is actually the number one place that listens to the Science of Personality podcast, which is a podcast that I co-host with Hogan's PR manager, Blake Lepp. And we did a podcast episode a few months ago talking about this question. What are the skills needed in an AI-driven world? And that podcast inspired some more research, some more thought about what are these future skills? And as AI has developed, more about what are we really going to need to see in the workplace going forward? And so that's what I'm hoping to talk with you all about today. Yes, there we go. I can advance the slides. Wonderful. So this is what I'm going to cover over the next, say, 35, 45 minutes, something like that. We're going to talk a little bit about knowledge and what that means in a world infused with artificial intelligence. We're going to talk about what I see as 5 critical human differentiators, 5 things that humans bring to the table, even in an AI world. And we're going to talk about how this creates increased importance on leadership, not actually decreased importance on leadership as more and more organizations bring AI into the fold. And then finally, we're going to leave some practical recommendations for you. What are the kinds of things that you and your organizations can do in terms of assessing and developing your talent? So if you have to leave early, here's the good news. This slide here is going to tell you the tale of the tape. This is the key message that I want to deliver today, which is that AI is changing tasks much faster than it's changing human nature. Technology is changing what can be automated. And this has been true for hundreds, thousands of years. New technology has come into the fold and it has changed the way we do tasks. However, it really hasn't changed human nature. It hasn't changed the way we interact with each other, the way we work together, the way we're motivated by different incentives and rewards. And so human nature really isn't changing. And what this means is that personality is ultimately going to shape how we do things, even in an AI era. How do we work? How do we decide? How do we cooperate? How do we lead in an AI era? It's still going to be driven by personality. It's not going to be driven by AI. And so the central message here is that the durable advantage for today's organizations isn't tools. I'll guarantee almost every single person on this call today has AI tools available at their workplace. They have used AI tools. So everybody has these tools. What's going to give you an advantage in your organization is human capability, not necessarily access to different AI tools. That's going to be the key message from today. So I want to start by talking about the concept of knowledge. And what does knowledge actually mean? Well, there's some distinction between knowledge and intelligence, but in many cases, people use these in overlapping ways. And particularly in the case of artificial intelligence, we see that sort of equated with knowledge. I'm going to talk about why we mean that here. So, psychologists typically refer to 2 kinds of intelligence. The first kind is crystallized intelligence. This is the things that you know, your vocabulary, your experiences, And AI is really good at what we might call, what psychologists would call crystallized intelligence. We can get answers to questions very rapidly with AI. In fact, that's one of the things that we're seeing with AI is that sometimes it gives us answers too quickly and too rapidly, and sometimes even potentially incorrectly. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. But what this means is that things like the ability to know the answer to things, the value of expertise, the value of memorization is less than it used to be when in an AI era. The other kind of intelligence is called fluid intelligence, the other kind of intelligence that psychologists study. This concerns reasoning, identifying patterns, solving new problems that you've never encountered before. And AI seems to be a little less capable in these areas compared to, say, the crystallized intelligence test. Many of you have probably seen that AI passes without any trouble at all, medical board examinations, law school examinations. But when faced with new problems or new challenges or reasoning challenges, sometimes AI doesn't do so well. Now, to be fair, these models are getting better at these challenges. But still, compared to crystallized intelligence problems, AI doesn't quite do as well. And I'll give you an example. This was one of the favorite examples from maybe about 12 months ago. There were lots of people on the internet showing this example. A person would talk to an AI, let's say they were talking to Gemini, and they would say, "Hey, Gemini, I need a car wash, and the car wash is a 5-minute walk from my house. Should I walk to the car wash or should I drive?" And Gemini would say things like, "Well, if it's a nice day out and walking can be really healthy and good exercise, so you should really walk to the car wash." And the person would then say, "Well, if I walk to the car wash, how will my car get washed?" And the AI, Gemini in this case, would say, "Oh, don't worry. The car wash will take care of all of that. You don't need to, that's the whole advantage of going to the car wash is you don't have to wash it at all." And then the person would explain, "No, no. If I walk to the car wash, how will my car get there?" And then finally, Gemini would say, "Oh, I see. Oh, yes. In that case, you really should drive to the car wash." Now, I think these are kind of amusing because this is a bit of a reasoning problem that a 5-year-old would easily and trivially solve. But AI struggles with those kinds of problems. Now, this might lead you to believe that, aha, what he's saying is that crystallized intelligence is no longer valuable. Fluid intelligence is the most valuable thing. AI can't do fluid intelligence. AI can only do crystallized intelligence. But I would caution you to draw this conclusion, right? So this is one conclusion you might draw, or that psychologists might draw from looking at this so far. But I think we need to hold up a little bit here, or as the American sports commentator Lee Corso, who's pictured here, says all the time, "Not so fast, my friend." This is when he's famous for arguing with other sports analysts who will say, "This team's really great," and he'll say, "Not so fast, my friend. Here are the things that I see as problems." But that's what I think we're seeing here when if we try to draw conclusions about the value of fluid versus crystallized intelligence in the AI world. I think what we're actually seeing is this sort of new bottleneck that's coming up when it comes to what does it mean to have knowledge, or what does it mean to have intelligence. Instead of it being about memorization and knowing answers, it's now more about, do we understand the problem? Are we picking the right problems to solve? Are we evaluating our options appropriately? Can we get people on board to help solve these problems? And can we take accountability for the consequences, or are we just going to offshore accountability to these AI models? Now, I'm going to argue that this isn't just fluid intelligence, that there's a lot more to making decisions today than just fluid or even crystallized intelligence. And so what I'm going to talk the rest of the talk today about is about these 5 human differentiators. What are the things that really set humans apart that will become a critical advantage in the workplace in the forthcoming years, say 5 to 10 years? Now, I will say before I go into this that Predicting the future is always a hazardous occupation, as one famous scientist once said. He said, predicting the future is often a hazardous occupation, but what we do know is that the future will be amazing. That's anyway, this is a famous scientist said this, but I don't know if it's going to be amazing. Maybe it won't be so promising, but we'll see. But I do think that these 5 human differentiators are going to make an impact in the workplace, particularly as AI becomes a more critical part of how we work today. So here are those 5 differentiators. The first one is judgment. The second one is interpersonal skill. The third one is originality. The fourth one is adaptability. And the fifth one is character. And I'm going to go into detail about each of these and what they mean. But in the meantime, I think it's worth pointing out the sort of irony of this slide. Can anyone guess in the chat what makes this slide ironic? I'll give you a moment. And you get, yes, there we are. Thank you. Good, great job. We've got a couple of folks who chimed in with the right answer. Yes, so AI created the images. AI didn't create the slide, but it created the images for each of these 5 dimensions. So I will take credit for the content. I did create the content, but oh, the spelling of judgment. Well, this is a UK versus US debate about how judgment should be spelled. So I went with the US spelling here. In any case, these 5 human differentiators, I think, are really going to be critical going forward. And so let's dig a little deeper into each of these differentiators. So the first one is judgment. When we talk about the future work in AI, we know that AI can get us lots of answers. AI can give us lots of options to choose from. But choosing among those options is often challenging. In fact, in many business problems, we're not given a right or a wrong choice. Many times it's 2 equally valuable competing choices, and deciding which one to take can be a challenge for businesses today. And so when we talk about judgment, we're talking about evaluating the information and making good decisions. But I also think there's an element here to asking the right questions. One of the problems that we see with AI is it's able to provide lots of answers. But if it's the answers to the wrong question, that doesn't help us. So some of you may know this in the sort of human history. I don't know whose job it is to declare these things, but there have been various ages. So if we go back to ancient times, people would talk about the Bronze Age or the Iron Age. Many years ago, there was an era called the Industrial Age, right? And does anyone know what the age is today that we're supposedly living in? And if you know what today's age is, nope, it's not the AI age. That's a good guess, though. Maybe it will be called that someday, but no, it hasn't been declared that just yet. Age of technology is good, and Christy with the first correct answer, that the information age. That's what the big buzz was. Oh, it's been around now for maybe 20 or 30 years. Some very funny answers here in the chat. Look, now, I've been trying to get people on board with this, but I've not been successful. When I first heard about the information age, particularly around the internet, right? We've got this new tool, the internet. Now we all have access to so much information. This was a big driver of the concept of the information age. I've been trying to tell people that I think it's really more like the misinformation age. Now, it hasn't really caught on, but if you want to share that with your friends, that would make me feel a lot better. What do we mean by misinformation age? Well, there's so much information, it's easy to get the information wrong. It's easy to, like if you've worked with AI tools, to watch those tools hallucinate, to give you incorrect answers. The same has been true for internet searches for years. Watch different news channels, different news stations present information differently, different takes. How do we really know what's true and what's not true? This is why I refer to it as the misinformation age. There is so much information, it is hard to distill fact from fiction. And so what do I think this means in an AI era? So for me, what this means is it's not so much about our access to information. It's about what we do with that information. It's about good, sound judgment. Have we asked the right questions? Can we make good decisions given that we don't have perfect information? Do we own the consequences of our decisions? Do we take responsibility for those? Are we capable and willing to change our decisions when we've made a bad choice? Or do we double down and continue to make those bad decisions over and over again? So I think good judgment is going to be increasingly important in an AI era. The second one we've talked about here is interpersonal skill. Despite AI and despite claims from some of the AI advocates that AI is going to eliminate many, many jobs, and to some extent, I think that's true. AI will eliminate some jobs. I think net, we're going to see about as many jobs created by AI as we're going to see lost by AI. But there are many proponents of AI. I would point out that many of those people have fiscal and monetary interests in AI being seen as powerful and dramatic, telling us that jobs are going away. I think fundamentally organizations are still social systems. We still have to work in a social world. Let's say we use really good judgment to make a decision. This is the path our company's going to go forward with. Okay, how are you going to get people on board? Can you influence others to join you on that path? How can we manage conflicting paths that people want to choose from? How can we build trust within our team to get people to go along? These fundamental issues are not going to go away in an AI era. Now, there are exceptions. There are people who have started businesses all by themselves. They use AI agents to run a whole number of aspects of their business. I think these are few and far between. I will tell one brief story here about a really funny version of this business where a guy created a business and he has AI agents running all the aspects of his business. He's assigned AI agents different roles, including executive roles. One's the CEO, one's the COO, one's the CFO. And then they will have executive meetings with each other, and then they will argue with each other in these executive meetings, which I think is pretty funny to have AI agents arguing with each other about the best course of progress for the business. But notwithstanding those exceptions, I think fundamentally interpersonal skill is going to remain critical in the future of work. And this is also true when interacting with an AI. I'm assuming most everyone on this call has interacted with AI tools. And if you've worked with an AI agent at all, one of the things you'll find out is that you have to have really good and clear communication with them. If you ask an AI agent to do something and aren't really clear, sometimes it does something that was totally not what you wanted it to do at all. So communication skills are still valuable. I was once working with an AI agent and I needed it to create an Excel file of some folders, some subfolders in a folder I had. And I basically just told it to do that. Go create an Excel file using these names on the folders. And whatever it created was an absolute monstrosity. It made no sense. I had no idea what to do with it. And it was one of these things that I thought if I had told an intern, a human being, and I had said, here, go do this, they would have known exactly what I meant and done this without any trouble. But I wasn't clear enough with the AI agent. It didn't understand the full context for what I would have wanted. It didn't have an understanding of how a human might want to use this file. So it just did what I told it to do. So upon review, I gave it a clearer set of instructions. No, make the columns like this, make the rows like this, and was really, really clear and explicit. And then I got the kind of file I wanted. But the point is communication skills, the ability to ask our questions of AI tools and AI agents the right way is still going to remain critical going forward. So the third one, and this is perhaps my favorite one, is originality. Now, there's been a lot of discussion in the AI world around things like creativity and innovation. And does AI stifle creativity? Can AI be creative? Can AI innovate? Can it find, can it create novelty? And I think the answer is yes. An AI tool can be creative. You can use AI to uh, gather disparate pieces of information, put those two pieces of information together to create something new. But I don't think AI can really be original. Well, what do I mean by this? Well, I think we can use an example here. If we look at the highest grossing films for 2026, if you look at the list of those films, you see things like Zootopia 2, Star Wars, Mandalorian and Grogu, Avatar, Ash and Fire, The Devil Wears Prada 2, uh, perhaps my favorite, Scream 7. Yes, we're up to 7 screams now, apparently. Um, or maybe even one more, the Odyssey. Hello, hardly original here, right? So perhaps this better reflects a moviegoer's penchant for nostalgia, but I think it also reflects a lack of originality in ideas. So where are the new ideas? What are the questions that have never been asked before? In a scientific world like the world that I live in, there is a premium on original ideas. There is a premium on original data. Uh, Earlier this year, we launched a report called The Leadership Divide, where we're working with partners like PBC and several other of our partners around the globe. We were able to collect original data looking at the leaders that people want versus the leaders that people have in their organizations. And this brand new study brought us all kinds of insights about this divide between the leaders that we have versus the leaders that we want. But we couldn't have discovered this without going out and collecting original data. So there's an absolute premium on collecting original data. AI tools can analyze data from all kinds of sources that already exist. And that's the thing, is that everybody has access to that now. We don't necessarily need people who can do those technical analyses of existing data. AI tools can do that. What we need are people who can ask new questions, who can discover new things for the first time. And in the business world, the ability to innovate, the ability to create something new, having originality is a premium as well. The fourth one, the fourth human differentiator that we've identified is adaptability. Now, what I'll say about this one is I don't think this one's new at all. In a world where everybody has access to tools and the tools are constantly changing, there's a new, you might remember, some of you might remember this concept of a digital mindset. This was a huge concept some years ago. Who has a digital mindset? That sort of faded away, and now it's all about AI capability. The tools of work are always changing. So what's really valuable when the tools are constantly changing is our ability to adapt to those new tools. It's not about who knows tools. It's about who can learn new tools the fastest, who can adapt to changing circumstances. Curiosity here has a much bigger value than things like certainty. Knowing, having knowledge is less valuable than being curious enough to go discover something new, to find new knowledge. Learning agility has been a concept that's been around for many, many years. Probably many of you have used it in your workspaces as well. And I think adaptability is a great way of thinking about what learning agility gets us. And ultimately, adaptability also concerns our ability to be resilient as technology changes, as new challenges arise from an AI era. Who can adapt to those challenges? For many years, people have, the last several years anyway, people have asked me, what do we need out of today's leaders? This was the last couple of years. And I said, you don't necessarily need a leader who's an AI expert, but you need a leader who understands how AI is going to impact their business. How is the change in technology? How do we need to adapt to this change in technology? So in this case, adaptability is another one of those critical skills that is growing in importance in an AI era. And the fifth one here is character. As technology increases our ability to get things done, our ability to do analyses, our ability to write, our ability to create new content, we have to have character to determine whether we're using these tools for good or for evil. There are huge questions in the AI world today around privacy and fairness, and accountability, and responsible use of power. And I will say that every technological revolution, every time a new technology has been introduced to human society, there have been moral and ethical questions raised. Is this good for us? How can we use this to maximize the good and minimize the bad? Many of you have probably seen the story from last week where OpenAI, one of their new models that they were testing in a sandbox environment, got out of the secure sandbox environment, and went and broke into another company's servers, and there was a data breach there. And so we have to ask ourselves, what are the value of AI? What are the concerns we have around it? How can we use this to maximize the good? Putting these kind of things together, let's say we can make decisions where we're using judgment to make decisions about the next round of our business. We've got people on board using our interpersonal skills. We've asked tough questions like, is this really innovative? Is this novel? Is this new? We're adapting to circumstances. We are learning the latest tools. Ultimately, some questions are going to come down to character. Do we have the integrity to make the right decisions? Some years ago, people would talk to me about, various degrees that they could get. And, one of the degrees that I think has historically, or at least over the last, say, 40 or 50 years, not been so valued would be a degree in philosophy. I was talking with someone recently, I said, maybe we'll all have to become philosophers because these are some of the big questions that are being asked now. What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be an AI? How can we use ethical decision making? What is the right moral conditions for the use of AI? I think these are some of the big questions that we're all facing in society, and leaders with character are going to be more and more critical. My colleague Anne-Marie Paymont, who lives here in Sydney, told me some interesting statistics the other day. About 50% of leaders use AI and don't admit it. They don't share that they're using it. They don't disclose the use of AI in their work. What does that say about their character? What kinds of things might happen? A number of leaders and organizations are actually uploading company IP into open source AI tools. Right? These concerns are going to grow for organizations. So it's more critical that we hire and we develop character in our leaders and our employees. Okay, so we've just got a few minutes left. I'm going to make a few points here. One is that these 5 differentiators don't operate independently. They work together synergistically. This is just one example here. If we have originality, consider originality and judgment together. If we are low on originality and low on judgment, well, then we're not really moving the needle forward at all. But if we're just high on one of these, if we're just high on originality, this creates chaos. I think about things like this OpenAI model as an example. What happened there? We've got lots of originality, right? Some new ideas to explore, but poor judgment in how it was executed. And now we have chaos. On the other hand, if we have great judgment but lack of originality, we end up with efficient compliance. So really, these need to go together. We need originality and judgment together to create what we might call strategic originality, to really move the needle forward in our organizations. All 5 of these, and this is just one example, you can combine each of these 5 differentiators and in these kind of ways to see just how valuable it is when they work together. I'll also make a comment here about leadership. In an AI world, leadership becomes more important, not less. More and more of work is going to be automated and more routine. This means leaders are going to spend more time working with people, less time working on tasks, more time working with people, uh, asking big questions about is this the right direction? Is this the direction we should go? AI can give us options for what direction we could go. AI could even suggest a direction we could go, but does it have the critical context? Is this the direction we should go? Leaders are going to have to make those decisions. How should we focus our time? Can we get people on board? These are critical questions that are going to come up and more for leaders. And it actually suggests to me that leadership is going to be even more important in an AI era rather than less important. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit in these last few minutes about the things that you can do in your organizations. If I'm running an organization today and I get to run a small data science wing of Hogan Assessments, what are the kinds of things I'm thinking about? What are the kinds of things the organizations that Hogan works with, what are they telling us they're thinking about? These are, I think, some of the key areas to consider assessing, consider developing in your employees. Let's put less emphasis on how many AI tools do you know, and more emphasis on how quickly can you learn new tools, because today's tools might go out of favor tomorrow. So it's not about technical expertise of one thing. It's more about can we quickly adapt? Can we learn more? This is where I think, some of the old majors that people would say, well, what are you going to do with a communications major? What are you going to do with a psychology major? I think have more value than we might have thought, right? So when I was young, my mom encouraged me to get a degree in computer science so I could be a developer. Well, now what are we saying today? Developer jobs might be one of the ones replaced by some of these AI tools, right? So I think having a technical skill a little bit less valuable, technical knowledge a little bit less valuable, critical thinking, judgment, our ability to learn and adapt to changing circumstances. These are the kinds of things we want to evaluate. And we can evaluate these with high quality personality assessments. We can evaluate what is your decision-making style? Do you think critically? Can you learn new things quickly? Do you have emotional intelligence? Can you build the team to collaborate and coordinate? Do you have innovative and original ideas? Can you ask questions that nobody's asked before? These can all be evaluated with a high quality personality assessment. They can be tracked over time with an instrument like a 360. So I think there's great opportunities for us both to assess and develop our talent in this future world. Okay, I'm going to wrap up with just a few closing comments, and then we will take some time for Q&A. So the question here is not whether AI will replace humans. I think it's pretty clear that AI isn't going to replace humans anytime soon. Again, notwithstanding a few of the AI folks who say we're approaching singularity, I think mostly because they're going to get more money if they can convince their investors that these big things are happening. But it's more about what are humans going to contribute when everyone has access to this knowledge, everyone has access to intelligence. And I think the answer are these 5 skills, at least these 5 skills. There might be more, but I think these 5 human differentiators, judgment, interpersonal skill, originality, adaptability, and character are going to see an increase in value in our organizations, not a decrease, as more and more AI tools come online. And then finally, ultimately, AI is giving us the ability to do more things. More things are becoming possible in an AI era. The question is, are we going to do the right things with them? And this is where things like human judgment and character come into play critically. And with that, I will say thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ryne and Peter, for those presentations. I think, Ryne, just pick up on some of your messages. Nice to end on a bit of a message of hope. I think the newspaper headlines can often feel a bit doom and gloom, so reassuring to hear that there absolutely will be a role and a place for these distinctly human capabilities and a practical roadmap and path forward for those of you on the call that are thinking about where to prioritize your investments in development. We might stick on the theme of AI as we kick off the Q&A. And maybe, Ryne, if I can start with you and a question from Jinty. Are there emerging risks that AI churn might diminish independent thought, analytical or critical thinking? And what are the long-term impacts on personality and the more sycophantic traits of some AI?
Yeah. So to the first part of the question, I do think there are risks of sort of AI dependence. There's been some studies done, some X-ray, some doctors, actually not X-ray technicians, but doctors using X-rays where they were given X-rays and they could evaluate whether or not there was an issue, a medical issue, and then they were given X-rays and an AI tool where they could evaluate whether it was a medical issue. And they did fairly well in both conditions, but then the doctors who had the AI tool had that AI tool removed and were asked to continue doing the task, and their performance declined in terms of being able to evaluate and identify potential medical issues on an X-ray. So this suggests that over-reliance on AI can diminish our skills and expertise. I think one of the questions we have to ask ourselves is how valuable are those skills and those expertise in a situation where we have AI at the ready? And I don't know. I think it's going to depend on particular circumstances. It's going to depend on our particular jobs and particular roles. But I think there are certainly risks that dependence on AI. I think this might be one of the reasons why we're seeing a lack of originality is sort of dependence on technology to come up with new ideas. And so I think there's this trade-off between those two kind of things, and like in all likelihood, we're gonna have to use AI, but there have to be also other ways where we are continuing to develop our own skills. And by the way, I will say this, that expertise is still going to be needed in an AI era. I can try to have an AI agent develop a new application, computer application if I want to, but I'm not well suited to determine if that application is working correctly. I can't really debug it because I can't really tell it what the issues might be. But an expert developer can. An expert developer can see the outputs and say, hey, have you considered this? And the AI can go, oh yeah, I need to build that in, right? And so I think expertise still has a value in an AI era. It's just we're going to see it shrink a little bit.
Right. Thanks, Ryne. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that the challenge is how do you build or train or QA a model if you don't have that underlying expertise, it becomes very complicated. Peter, a question for you from Hans. What's the difference in perspective between the Hogan 360 and the high-performing team assessment?
Great question. Thank you, Emma. The Hogan 360 is an assessment of an individual, typically a manager. It could be a junior manager or a C-suite executive. It's called often a multi-rater assessment because you get assessed by boss, peers, direct reports, sometimes stakeholders. Typically, we look for 12 to 15 raters. There's also a self-assessment in there. So you can then say, well, how did I see myself compared to how all the other different rater groups saw me? So I call it the your love note from work. What is your reputation or brand? What performance and behavior are people seeing? And it's a bit of a showstopper because for a lot of people, it's very direct feedback. You get a score benchmarked against the global population of 60,000 managers in our database, and you can then set a goal of improving that score. And it's perfect for coaching. So the 360, very much an assessment of an individual. Now, the high-performing team assessment, by contrast, is an assessment of an intact team. So it could be the CEO's team one, the CEO and the direct reports. It could be on a big project management in building or construction engineering. There's a project team. So you take an intact team where there is a shared leader, the one leader. That team is there for a purpose to deliver outcomes. It could be a finance team, a HR team, a sales team. And what the members of the team do is go online and confidentially assess how they think the team is going. And there are two overarching competencies. We rate them to assess the performance of the team. Are we a high-performing team? The culture of the team. is their trust and emotional intelligence and collaboration. So very, very different tools. But if you're using Hogan personality, that's a self-assessment, generating a lot of self-awareness and coaching. The 360, a multi-rater assessment from 10 to 15 people that know you well at work. And then the team diagnostic is a measurement of how that team is going at a point in time. And the disturbing news is 80% of teams are not high performing.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Peter, and thanks, Hans, for the question. Ryne, back to you and back to AI. A question from Renee. What kind of development activities are you recommending beyond psychometrics for leaders and individual contributors in this new age of AI?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So thanks, Renee. I mean, so, some years, just a few months ago, I asked people, what happened when the internet became a thing? Now, I was in school when the internet became a thing. And so I remember the computer labs had internet on them now, and you could go to the computer lab and somebody would teach you about how to log onto the internet, and you would go to websites that don't exist anymore and learn how to search the web and things like that. But that was the training that I remember. But I was in school and I asked some folks, hey, you were in the workplace when the internet became a thing. What happened? Was there a training on how to use the internet? Did somebody just plug your computer into an internet and said, hey, you've got the internet now, and walk away? And nobody could really tell me. They said, I don't really remember how that happened. So I think one of the big things we need to do is train people on how to use AI in the workplace. And I know some organizations are doing it, but other organizations are just saying, hey, you all have Copilot now. Good luck. And so I think one of the big things we should be developing people around is how to use these AI tools to be more efficient and to be more productive. I can tell you one thing that we have started doing at Hogan is we have every Friday these little 15-minute videos. We call it Appy Hour, APPY hour, and where you can learn about some advanced AI user has put together a little video saying, hey, this is a way I'm using AI to make things more efficient, more productive, safer in the workplace. And they're sharing those videos and people can check those out. So these are the kinds of things I think we need to be training our workforce in as AI becomes ubiquitous in the workplace.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ryne. I think we're also starting to see a little bit of a shift back to in-person sort of selection and development, people heading back more to in-person assessment centres and things like that, given some of the concerns around faking and use of AI in recruitment processes, that people are really putting a premium on getting to see people in the flesh and in person and how they perform. So I think, could almost be the pendulum swinging back in some ways. Peter, a question for you from Alex, who asks, what can you offer for a medium-sized business without the budget of a larger company? And this might be a question for both you and Ryne, but sort of where might you get the biggest return on your investment if your budget's a bit smaller? Where would you spend limited dollars?
Wow, that's a great question, and it's a difficult one to answer. I think, Emma, we would start by saying, what leadership development have you had on the top executives? What have they had in the last couple of years? Have they been to a business school? Have they had multi-rater assessments or personality? We would then call for the employee engagement data that the company would have to understand whether they're highly engaged with their workforce or not. So, and then we'd want to see, have you got your strategic cadence and strategic clarity around your planning cycle? And we're looking, how do you integrate those three? So typically, the CEO and the execs have the greatest impact. So we would probably offer the most cost-effective Hogan personality to start with. We're generating self-awareness, team awareness. They would share their personality data at that executive cohort. And we might space it 3 months down the track or 6 months down the track when you've got budget, follow up with the 360. And then you can also throw in the high-performing team assessment for the executive. The high-performing team assessment is not expensive because it's a one-off report generated by input from members of the executive. Then you've got the coaching opportunity. So I think we would sit down and have a discussion around discovery. What have you actually done? Where are you as a business? What are your challenges? And because the CEO and the senior execs have that 70% of the impact on the whole organization, we would want to start with them, and we can do something cost effective. There's not a problem there.
Thanks, Peter. That's a good way to frame it. Ryne, any adds from you and some
Yeah,
more evidence?
I totally agree with Peter, but the thing I would add is that there are some more cost-effective solutions, some more solutions that are not quite as expensive as some of our solutions that are available as well. Although I wouldn't necessarily say they're targeted at smaller or mid-sized businesses. In fact, I think that mid-sized businesses in some ways have a bit of an advantage in the sense that they don't have as many people often to assess or to evaluate. One of the biggest challenges we see with really large businesses is the problem of scalability. Is that an assessment with a debrief takes time. It takes a human to come in and say, hey, this is what this means. Putting a development plan together for those individuals. That's one of the biggest challenges for large businesses, is that we can't scale down often below the very senior level. And I think for mid-sized businesses, because the experience that we have with our clients is they don't come to us saying, oh, wait, the budget is the issue. The bigger issue that comes to us is more about scalability. So I would say there's lots of opportunity for mid-sized businesses with a Hogan 360 or with Hogan's assessments as well.
Right. Thanks, Ryne. We've got quite a few, I think, coaches on the line, and I might bring together two questions here, maybe one from Agnes and one from Ira. How is AI shaping, helping, or hindering coaching? And are you using AI tools to analyze results? Maybe Ryne, we'll start with you. What are you sort of seeing globally in terms of trends, and then maybe Peter, use of AI and sort of interpretation of 360 results?
Yeah. So on the coaching front, obviously there is this notion that, well, what about an AI powered coach, right? And the advantage of an AI powered coach is, one of the advantages is the scalability, right? That we could offer more of that coaching to more people. There's a fair amount of research now that's coming out on AI coaches versus human coaches. No surprise, human coaches win in terms of quality and all of those kinds of things. But that doesn't necessarily mean that AI coaches are bad. Again, particularly when you can offer, it's no coaching versus some AI coaching, it looks pretty valuable to have AI coaching. But the biggest challenge that we're seeing is that human coaches provide an accountability partner that AI coaches just don't. It's really easy to skip your coaching session with your AI coach. It's not so easy to do when you've got a meeting with another human who said, hey, over the next 2 weeks, I want you to work on these things. And in 2 weeks, you're going to report back and tell me how it's going. With an AI coach, not so much. In fact, that's what some of this research is finding, is that people really engage much more with human coaches. If you were super motivated to be coached, an AI coach is going to be great for you, just like a human coach would be. But most people aren't super motivated to do that. And so they really need that accountability partner that comes with the human coach. So that's one of the biggest trade-offs we're seeing with AI coaching potential right now.
Thanks, Ryne. And Peter, thoughts on sort of use of AI to analyze reports and results?
I'm a big advocate, Emma, of the human coaching. I think it enriches the whole experience for the person who is the coachee. If you take Hogan personality assessments, the bright side, the dark side, the inside, only the human coach would have the expertise to jump between all three assessments and join all the dots and deal with the contradictions and so on. And we often triangulate the coaching. One of the coaching sessions is obviously with the coachee, but then we bring the manager in. And then you open up a whole different discussion around, well, how does the manager see the person performing? What should go in the development plan? What is the next career move? And Emma, just to share a little secret with you, in so much of the human coaching, you get very deep-seated personal issues coming out of work. I know, do I get on with my boss? Have I got someone that ought to be terminated? How's my health? So to have that human coach who is well qualified, certified, experienced, it's just going to give you a much bigger return on investment.
Yeah, I think it links nicely back to Ryne's differentiated character, right? And we've seen some other sort of cautionary tales globally of people overly relying, I think, on AI to make big life decisions. We might move to maybe final one or two questions, just conscious of time. A question from Colin, Ryne, for you. What's the key requirement of leaders to truly empower their teams to experiment and use AI, especially as leaders are under pressure to do and achieve more with less and show a return on investment?
Yeah, this is a great question, Colin. A couple of things. One is that we know. Okay, so psychological safety is really critical for any kind of experimentation. So that's the first step, is that a leader has to be able to provide an environment where people feel psychologically safe to explore, to try new things. So that's the first part. Obviously, you want to do that in an environment that's also internet safe, or IP, intellectual property safe as well, where you're not concerned about losing those kind of things in AI use. So people have to to feel empowered to try things, even if those things don't work. And I will say this regarding your question, your part of your question about ROI. The data so far seem to suggest that AI-based products, services, and solutions are not getting that big ROI that CEOs hope they might. Whereas where we're seeing a lot more value in AI is in internal productivity. So internal AI use is up, and it seems to be increasing and improving productivity and accuracy and quality inside organizations. We've seen less value in offering AI products, AI powered products to outside to additional organizations. So that's what I would encourage leaders to think about is, okay, how can I create psychological safety for my employees to test these kind of things? And what are the ways we can use AI to make our business processes more efficient rather than trying to go for the big shot? How can I create a new AI tool that will make us lots of money?
Great, thanks, Ryne. I might throw one final question to you, Ryne, because I think it's a nice question, sort of end on a positive note, thinking about the future generations joining the workforce. We've got a question here from Winston. When you have to select graduates for a business where leadership potential is a requirement, how do you go about that, Ryne, in this changing world? I think it probably brings together some of the themes when things are changing so quickly. Maybe education systems aren't keeping up. What should organizations really be looking for in new generations of talent?
Yeah, well, and I'll certainly kick this to Peter for some of his thoughts as well. But the great thing about personality assessments is that that's exactly what they can do, is they can identify what is your potential to reach in terms of what are those bright side characteristics that you have, that's you when you're at your best. What are those potential derailers that you might have that you may not be aware of that will stop you from reaching your potential in your career? And so personality assessments are a great way to get those kind of insights. And we have many different products at Hogan that are designed to gather those insights depending on your specific workplace context. I mean, a simple model is something like a high potential leadership tool, which we have, but there are other basic personality assessments too that can give you insights into those potentials or potential limiters on your career as well. Peter?
Look, the Hogan personality assessments are a great place to start with. We often use the MVPI to draw out what are your values and intrinsic drivers and who is this idealized self with the blue data. Then we use the HPI to draw out strengths, and 4 of the 7 scales do most of the heavy lifting, and we can see whether they're there or those behaviours need to be learned. And I agree with you, the HTS or the Hogan Development Survey, the dark side, typically people have 3 scores above 70, and we really have to coach that we want them to be strengths for years and years and years to come and not derailers. So we do a lot of work on what are the potential derailers here and how are you going to self-manage those. And it takes deliberate practice, new mental muscle, feedback, coaching, 360 reviews to see what is on display. But the goal is certainly to take someone from good to great and help them with their career.
Great. Thanks, Ryne and Peter. A really nice note to close on there. Thank you, Peter and Ryne, for sharing your expertise and insight with us today, and Ryne for being down under with us for the week here. And thank you all to those of you for making the time to join us and contribute to the discussion today. We didn't get through all of the questions, but I will ensure that one of the team follow up with each of you. I know some of you asked some quite specific questions, and we'll get back to you on those. We really hope today's session has been valuable and has provided you with some practical ideas and new perspectives. The team have put some of the links to the materials that are available now in the chat, so please feel free to jump into those, including the Core 5 leadership model. But as I mentioned, we'll be sharing the slides as well as the resources mentioned with you after today's event. So thank you again for spending time with us. We really appreciate your support of PBC, Hogan, and our Thought Leadership series, and we look forward to seeing you next year.